Hello and welcome to the impzonepod podcast. We're back again to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And well, this has kind of been teased. I don't know whether we talked too much about it. I think we did talk about it a little bit in the Slammiversary review video. We actually did talk about it a fair bit. As I said, sorry guys, I'm a bit forgetful sometimes about some things, and I've been sick, so it's very hard because I'm always putting together videos, I'm always putting together stuff. There's a million things going on, so excuse me if I do forget that we actually did have a fair conversation about this. But the Hardy Boys versus Team 3D has been officially announced. Both teams were at WWE's SummerSlam, I believe night 2 or day 2 or whatever they calling it now, whatever. And they were both introduced, and it was mentioned on commentary about this one last time match for Bound for Glory. Now, this wasn't officially announced, it was teased, and I believe it was announced about the same time as these guys were being shown, introduced, what have you, on screen. So this is a big match between these two teams, and well, it's gonna go down. Like I said, there is some like sticking wickets to me, and it is a bit like, well, what does this do for anyone else? But then again, here we are. I don't even know. This is in October, isn't it? I believe October 12th. So where are we at? We're just in the start of August, September, October. So we've got like 2 months. Now, that is a long time to build. And I think like from looking before that they have pretty much sold out most of the tickets. There's only a few tickets left, maybe a couple hundred tickets left or whatever it is. I'm not sure. But still, they have sold out quite a few tickets for the Bound for Glory show already. And I do kind of feel like they should have, like, I don't know how big that arena that they got is, but they should have really shot for a bigger arena, especially thinking that, hey, this is one of the big marquee matches that we're, trying to put out there. Should have gone for another, 1,600 arena and try to get 10K or whatever. So that'd be where I'm at. But besides that, everything else I think this is good because, like, despite saying like what else does this do for the company or whatever, or whoever else is in the tag team division, okay, forget about that. Let's, sell a fucking show on something big. Like, I get that. And I don't know whether we really dived, whatever, into the argument of saying, well, this is a huge match, and what other big time matches could you put on that will draw people to come and see it? So that's the thing. Like, that's what they're trying to do. And this will be a huge, part of that. You have to draw people in, the casual people in. You have to draw in, all these people that remember these guys from whatever 25 years ago now, which is just insane in some ways. But, again, this sort of match, these sorts of things are the things that, sell shows, and getting that exposure of saying, hey, this was just mentioned on WWE programming, and yes, perhaps, that's not, especially SummerSlam, but whatever, it might not be a big translation, but, you start saying, oh, people saw that, and it was on their Facebook, it was on their Twitter, it was on most of their social medias, so again, you can start saying, this is a big build now for this show. But, it's one of those things, like, if this brings, even, again, same thing, like, if 2,000 more people start wanting to buy tickets, or 5,000 more people want to buy tickets, or whatever else it is, and they start going, oh, we've reached capacity, like absolute capacity, not just we've sold out. No, we've reached capacity for the building. Is there any way we can, refund people's tickets and say, let's move to another arena or a bigger arena or whatever else it is? I don't know, but that will have to be the goal. Like if there is enough demand, and that's where this starts. You've got to start somewhere of saying, this is a big match. Yes, it's not the only bloody match that's going to be on the show, but this is a big time match, and people want to see the Hardys and the Dudleys. And actually, I want to circle back to something that I saw somebody saying, that this match was too big for TNA to have on their card, or whatever else it was, something in that regard, and it should be at WrestleMania. I don't disagree that it should be at WrestleMania, or it should be at SummerSlam, or it should be here, or it should be there, it should be wherever. I do think that, like, them having one more match at in WWE, like a big time match, would be cool, and like all that sort of stuff, and it would be historic, and da 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 da, and it would be a big match that would draw people. But the thing is, WWE has a lot of drawing talent, so it's like, well, why would you need this extra little bit of drawing power? Yes, you could start saying, well, that would mean that people are, like, when they're buying their ticket to go to WWE's events, that they're now charging, millions of dollars for, apparently, or whatever else it is. It's like, yeah, now it's more justified, because, you're getting to see this big thing on that level of stage, and that's cool and all and whatnot. But the opposite kind of thing is true too, where you start saying, well, for TNA, they need to push themselves up, and permanently push themselves up. They need to have that people look at them and go, no, they really do deserve to be in the conversation, and they do deserve to be, at that level, and people should be going to their shows, because even if you don't go to every single show, it's like, yeah, there are those big shows that you really want to see. And that's only because they build them up with these smaller shows or whatever over time, in a sense. I do complain about it sometimes, but I don't complain about it to say, oh, they're shit, or whatever else it is, or degrade them, or whatever else it is. I try to say, or I'm trying to say, hey, constructively, this isn't great, this needed to be better, or it needed to be, like, given more time, or whatever else it was, because again, you're trying to build these things in like a couple of weeks, and it doesn't really work. When you're doing this, hey, here's a couple of months worth of build. This is a great thing to do, because, again, when are you ever going to get that kind of, like, momentum, or that kind of level of, like, here's WWE saying, hey, go and watch Bound for Glory, a TNA pay-per-view, literally, like, what the heck is going on? It's insane in some ways. But again, can this change anything? Or will this change anything? It depends on a lot of things. And it has to be a long-term thing. So I do think that this is fair for TNA to take this in some ways, in some forms, in some fashions, because WWE basically said, nah, we're not interested, or whatever. And that was mainly in some ways because of the fact that, some of like Matt and Jeff Hardy are both contractually signed TNA talent. So they didn't want to be like, let's bring these guys up even for one night, or even whatever it is, just to have one big match. So they had the chance, or have had the chance, and the opportunity to have this match, but they were just like, nah, we're not that interested. So people saying that TNA doesn't deserve this are like stupid because WWE didn't even want it when they could have had the opportunity to get it. So that's on them for saying, nah, we're going to pass it up in some ways. Even if that was like, nah, we're going to pass it up because we're going to let TNA have it, I don't think that was the plan, I think, or whatever, or that was the consideration, or whatever else it was. I think that they just went, nah, we're not interested, or whatever, and just moved on, and then went, now it's going to happen outside of our company, when they went and said, well, we want to have it happen anyway, and they said, okay, we're gonna put that match together because it's a big time match, or TNA did rather. Better preface it in there. And said, yes, we're going to put that match together. And then WWE went, oh, shit, well, maybe we should have had this match because it's a big-time match, and the history's there, and these guys are, everything that they've done in the business, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, all that stuff. So, again, I don't know what it was, who was making the decision, or why the decision was made based on saying, hey, we're not interested, or whatever, or we're not going to go that route, or whatever else it is. To me, that is dumb as hell. If you are somebody saying, even if you say, oh, well, we've got to bring in, like Devon, who's like basically retired or whatever. He's like one of your backstage guys. Like, what's the difference? So what? Bubba, he's like one of your backstage guys too, like, or whatever. He's more involved than I think Devon is, but whatever. And then you say, oh, well, we'd have to bring in the Hardys, and then we'd have to change the working relationship between us and TNA. Why the hell not then? Why the hell not? Like let's bring some TNA stars to the main roster. Why not? Like, you could have done it. You could have done it, and you could have had this big time match. And yes, I get, again, you start weighing out that, well, what's the pros and the cons type thing of saying, well, why are we bringing these guys in, or whatever else it is. That's what I was saying. It's like, why are we bringing these guys in? Like for WWE, it's like, we are already drawing big crowds or whatever. This might make it more palatable to some of the fans to saying, hey, however many thousands of dollars or whatever it is that I'm paying for a ticket, or hundreds of dollars or whatever it is that I'm paying for a ticket for whatever event or whatever, might make that better. But like, at the end of the day, so what? That doesn't really, like, we don't really need to do that. We just need to keep the ball rolling, so to speak, and keep going, because we've still got other things. And it's not like these guys are gonna stick around and they're gonna do anything and they're gonna help elevate anyone else or whatever else it is. So in our roster, so again, just getting this big time match doesn't really do anything for us. So I could understand that. Whereas if you're saying for TNA, having this big time match, yeah, it's something that I said before, might not do anything for the people that are on the roster now and that are going to be on the roster next year or whatever else it is, but for the whole company wide, perhaps it'll do more in that regard, because, hey, this is a huge match and people want to see it one more time. And especially putting, like, that's one of the caveats that's, like, on this match of being a promotional thing, of saying one last time. They're not going to just do it just to be like, hey, we'll do it again. But then again, they might, like WWE might, like, once the Hardys get released or out of their contract or whatever else it is, and that sort of thing. So I don't know. They might, like somebody said, they might pull it and bring it back in Saudi or whatever, or they might, like, talk them into doing it at WrestleMania. Like, people were saying Edge, his contract was up at some point, and Christians was potentially up in AEW at some point, and they said, well, maybe like Edge could come back and feud with Cena, and like they were thinking about this too. So it's like, I don't know. It's interesting to think about, where do we go from here? Why do we go from here? What's going on, etc. All the things, all the stuff. I like to think about, where we're going to go with that. Because again, I think that if you're thinking about, let's look at, Bound for Glory, getting these things going and doing these things, you've got to sell people on some big time stuff. So, let's let's friggin' do it. Like, not just let's think about it. No, you've got to say yes. That's what we're going to do. We're going to go this route. Why are we going this route? What is the payoff or whatever overall or whatever, so I don't know. That's their thing to have to figure out, and where we're going from here after Bound for Glory. Because again, like, I think, like, now that it's sort of been announced, now it's sort of been like, it's like people can see that, like, it's not just a tease or whatever else. It's official now. The ticket, like I said before, the tickets were already really well selling, so the tickets are going to be way better selling after this. If not, probably going to sell out. So we're in good spot in that regard in some senses. But the problem, or not the problem, but the issue in some ways will be how much more demand can they get if they do sell out, because then it'll be like, that situation of saying, well, what do we do from here if we do sell out? And it's like, there's still 1,000 or whatever more people that want tickets. We just cannot fill the building. There's literally no space left in the building for anything. And this is, it's over Red Rover, like, so that's where you've got to be at. You've got to be thinking like, well, what is this? What is the goal after that? Like, because again, the Hardys are going at some point. Their contracts are going to be over at, well, roughly around Bound for Glory time. And we know Devon and Bubba Ray, they aren't sticking around. So again, like, and this is probably one of, like, probably their last batches. So it's like, well, again, what are you going to do from here? Why are you going to do that? Because again, you can't just, like, flitter off your whole roster and forget that, next month, or not even next month, but the next year, you're not going to have the Hardys, you're not going to have the Dudleys, you're not going to have these things. And yes, you've sold these things out, and yes, you've made a big impact, but where does that impact go when you're on to the next thing or whatever else it is? You've got to look at it like that, of saying, well, why are we going here? How are we going there? Etc. All those things. So I have to think that this is, this has got to be their thought, hopefully, because if it's not, that's what they really need to realize, and need to think about, or need to, like, go, oh yeah, what are we going to do next year? And, like, even if it's not a clear, concise, as simple as that, but you've got to start thinking, okay, this is an issue that's going to come back to us, like, after the Hardys are gone, after the Dudleys are gone. What are we going to do to build to the next show, especially the next big show? Like, yes, you can still keep piddling along and getting a few thousand views here and there for your more minor shows, or for whatever, or even like you could go back down to having those more minor big shows or whatever that they were having before. But that's not where they want to be. They want to be, decently placed. And most of that would be coming from, arenas right now. So if you're not getting those good arena sales, then you're like we heard that the company is not in profit or whatever. So they're barely sort of scraping by. So that's not really where they need to be. Like either that or they're in deficit still. Which I can understand in some ways, because it is like, well, you've got a lot of big names, and how are you going to promote, something so big, or something, like the Hardies, a big contract, the Nick Nemeth, I'm sure, has a big contract. Moose has probably a fairly decently big contract. Some of those guys have had really big contracts. Like I'm sure the Hardies and whatnot is way bigger. I'm sure the Dudleys, for the time that they're appearing, is going to be fairly big. I don't know how big Tessa Blanchard's was, but I'm assuming she had a fairly substantial deal for herself, and things like that. So there's been a few people, again, that are on the roster, or especially in the last year or so. I'm not going to talk about people from the past. Like we could always talk about people that had a big contract on the company, again, but still you've got to think future, or whatever, now. How now, Brown Cow, in the last year or so, who's because all those big contracts are taking up most of the money yet again. But still, then again, you talk about the Hardies, especially, they're a big merchandise seller and whatnot. They're a big tickets mover. So that evens out a fair bit of, the fact that, hey, we're paying these guys a whole lot of money, and probably they're paying them a whole lot less money than what they could be getting. But again, they're probably not paying them, chump change or whatever. So, but it's not just to say we're going to pay some people some big money. No, it's saying we need this level of star power on our roster so that we can try to get people interested in the product. And when you say, okay, we're getting people interested in the product, you have to think, what's the future of that product? When these stars that we've already got have gone away, what do we do after that? So yeah, that's the big issue that they're gonna have to face. And yeah, I don't know how they're gonna solve it or whatever, but this is where we're at, and hopefully we can find a good solution to keep the ball rolling and keep things going, and that sort of thing. I mean, it's hard to predict where things will be in a year. What it was, the grizzled young veterans, that they had almost had them under contract there for a little while, or it seemed like they might be coming in and being under contract. They've had a few other, I'm not just going to talk about tag teams, but that was one of the major tag teams that they basically almost had. They almost had another variant of the Bullet Club coming in as well. So that was a big time, acquisition sort of thing, of saying, let's bring in these guys to come over here and start doing stuff. And that's what they need. They need star power. They need star power because the only thing that sells tickets, especially lots of tickets, is star power. You have to build star power in your younger and lesser known talent. And that is happening to some extent, but obviously not, like, sometimes you always say, oh, well, no one can eclipse Hulk Hogan. That was like until Stone Cold came along, and like then everyone said you can't eclipse Stone Cold, and then John Cena came along, like, so somebody always eclipses somebody else, in some way, in some form, in some fashion. Even if you might not agree with that totally, it is one of those things of saying, well, John Cena over his entire term has done more for the business than what, Stone Cold kind of did in his era. Maybe of all time, you can say that Stone Cold and Cena are pretty close or whatever. I don't know, but you know what I mean? Again, people can doubt that anyone can eclipse the Road Warriors, and then Team 3D and the Hardys and Edge and Christian come along. Then people think that no one can eclipse them, and then you get other tag teams that are bigger and more impactful than them, eventually. Like, that's where we're kind of at now. Like, you can talk about maybe the Motor City Machine Guns and a few other tag teams that have kind of been fairly big, but again, maybe not so much in WWE because Vince McMahon didn't really like tag team wrestling and whatnot, and didn't really invest in tag team wrestling. So, like, I think that those three teams and a couple of other teams maybe you could name off the top of your head. Like, if you start going in the last few years, maybe you talk about the Bloodline and the Usos, maybe you talk about the New Day, but that would be starting to be like, that's about it. Like, there was a bunch of other teams or whatever else that were kind of there and they existed. And there's some cool teams too in that list as well. Like, I like Fraxium as well. But, like, you have to admit that some of these teams, including them and including a lot of other teams, are, like, very forgettable in the long run because they haven't been built up to that level of being, we need to make a team like the Hardys. We need to make a team like the Motor City Machine Guns. We need to make a team that's, this era's new thing, and they're going to go on for the next 5, 10, 15, whatever years, and they're going to be the biggest thing in wrestling. That's how you've got to look at it. We've got to, you can't just look at tag teams as being mid-card acts. You've got to look at tag teams as being they're an equal, and same thing with women, same thing with the X division, or whatever, cruiserweight division, same thing with your everything else that you've got. You've got to look at it. This is an attraction part of the show. It's not just the international title or the Intercontinental Championship or whatever else it is the mid-card title, and we don't really care about it, and we stick it in the mid-card, and we stick people in the mid-card that we don't really care about, and we just let them do whatever, and we don't really care, and we're not going to push them, and they're not going to go anywhere, or whatever else, because we don't care, or because we don't think they're over enough, or because we don't think they've got the right look, or because of this, or because of that, or because of bananas, whatever. You've got to think like every division, every single thing that we're putting on every TV and every pay-per-view and everything that we're working with has got to be drawing people's attention and be drawing money for the company. That's the ultimate goal of everything. So you've got to treat everything like it's important. You can't just go, oh, we'll forget about that or whatever else it is, or this week we'll treat it with some reverence or whatever else it is, but next week we'll forget about it, or we'll forget about it here, or we'll kind of like feature it there or feature it here, but like we don't really care that much because we've got too many other things to do, so we haven't really figured something out. Like, same, I was going to say this for the International Championship. I think I already said it, but they had something there, and they could have used that. They could have used the triple threat with Jake something, Mance Warner, and with Macklin at Slammiversary. I don't know if that would work because it was only going to be given like 3 minutes, maybe 7 minutes or whatever it was. Maybe they'd be given a little bit more if Enzo hadn't talked for like 20 goddamn odd minutes or something or whatever it was. But still, that was where they were at with what they were doing. So again, every single little piece of the puzzle, especially when you're TNA in a small or a smaller company, an indie company or whatever, or a company like TNA, you've got to be thinking like every second matters. Every second matters. We've got to be like getting to that point of drawing people in consistently. Every like you say, yes, you might say, oh yes, they're getting 1 or 2 thousand consistent. That's not enough. They need to be getting 5-6 thousand consistently. They need to be getting 10,000 consistently. You know, um, they need to be getting, like that's the only way they can change their metrics. Like right now, is saying, hey, we did a 10K seat arena somehow, some way. Oh, now we've just done that for the last 6 months in a row or whatever else it is. If they started doing that, then it'd be like, holy crap. And that is like where they're at now. Like they've done some big things and gone, we've sold bigger and sold bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger the last 2 years. If we're given the chance and we're given the time and we're given the space and we're given like some extra promotion from WWE, we've shown, hey, we can turn people and come and see what we're doing over here, So it's not like there's a complete lack of interest. It's not, It's the fact that they cannot get enough eyes on the product in the form in which they're doing it now. So that's the challenge. So if this match helps, direct more eyeballs to going, oh shit, maybe we should check out Bound for Glory or check TNA out, at least for this, like especially when it's like seeing some of this other stuff of seeing the feud or seeing the build up for this, it's like how much is going to be there, I don't know. But yeah, like this is the sort of thing that you've got to do. So in that regard, I agree with it and I hope that it works. So, but yeah, I don't really know whether we're going to talk too heavily about this when it comes around to Bound for Glory time, because it is a fair way away now, and I have spent a fair amount of time talking about it. I even think I really landed on the idea before, saying that, like, what's the point in the Dudleys winning it? They're basically retired or whatever. So like I was thinking, like, again, you could work on like a call your shot gauntlet type thing, but I always feel like it's a problem with like these people's perception of these mid card titles, these tag team titles, any other titles other than the world title or the knockouts title. It starts becoming like, oh, you're just going for a lesser title. Like that's what happened when Rhino won the titles, won the thing, and he cashed it in for the tag titles. People were like, why didn't he go for the world title? Like it didn't make any sense to people. But I get that, but they should, I think in some ways you should change it up and kind of make it a little less the same and kind of like add some elements of like feast or fight. I think you could get rid of the fired element perhaps, because that's a little bit like too much perhaps. But make it more specific. Like you have a X Division gauntlet for the gold or a knockouts gauntlet for the gold. I know that starts becoming like, whatever in some ways, because it's like, well, now you're limiting the opportunities, or now you're dividing the roster, or now you're kind of like whatever. Like I think like it would work better if you started saying like, let's have a tag teams gauntlet. Let's have a, or just having a one gauntlet for the men and one gauntlet for the women, and then having it say, well, obviously they're going to use this to elevate themselves up to the next level. This is something that you put on younger or newer people or whatever else it is, and they go on and, win the big one, like after that. That's a good way of building people. It is a good way of setting up stories, I think, in some ways, but then again, it's like, well, did you really need to give Bully Ray the quarter shot. I don't know. Why? Who else would you given it to? I don't know, but whatever. Does it matter? Doesn't really matter. But then again, it was like you could have just kept him in the storyline anyway. Like you could have found other ways to tell that story rather than he's going to call his shot or whatever. I don't know, but still, whatever. Same idea. Like make it like if you're gonna keep, well, not keep, but if you're gonna have somebody have a storyline that revolves around like getting the X Division title or getting the tag team titles or getting some other titles, like they have to win something else or like maybe some other form, or maybe you just like some sort of scramble or something. I don't know. Like you do other things to have those other matches be played out rather than saying, let's give somebody not like Feast or Fired. I think that's fine. You can leave that, but for the battle royals, I think, or whatever, Gauntlet for the Golds, they should be male and female, and they should be knockouts title, world title, not whatever title you want. Because why else are you like, if you're getting into that match, obviously you're going for the world title, like, and you're a singles male wrestler or even a tag team male wrestler, you want to branch off and go and make yourself a big star, obviously. So same thing for the women. Like it might be now a 10-person battle royal or whatever, or maybe 15 or 20 maybe, I don't know. But again, just start making those things a little bit more specific. Don't do intergender anymore, because I think that it hurts it in some ways, and it just, yeah, I don't know, too much, but whatever. Anyway, those are ideas for other things at other times, I guess, but still, I do think that when you get to re-looking at things, you get to saying, well, why do this? Like you're shooting yourself in the foot, or you're shooting these other people in the foot by saying they're going to go for the tag team titles or whatever else it is. Have them win something else in some other way. And, or exactly like Feast or Fired. You could do that. Like exactly. And then give Rhino the tag team title match through that. And then somebody gets a X Division title, or somebody gets a whatever world title shot, and that's the way you set up like multiple storylines at a time, plus somebody's getting fired or whatever else it is. You could do the whole like Diener thing or whatever else, like hometown man style thing, or you could do something like that where it's like, they got fired but now they're back in a mask or something, or whatever, like that's been done a million times. But again, like it's always the thing that you can do. Or you can just be like, they're continuing to come back and, cause chaos and all this other stuff. So now we've, got to do something and got to get them out of here, whatever. So, but yeah, still, I think there's lots to be done there. And you can always do that with like, maybe like, I don't know, like those people that are leaving, so it's like, we know this person's leaving, so it's like, well, let's give them fired. Like, what's his name? From Joya, Uemura, whatever. He's like, he's going, so he's fired, whatever, So yeah, but good way to write people out for a little while or whatever, that sort of thing. In some ways, so, but yeah. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on the announcement and the fact that they put it, or they promoted it a little bit there at SummerSlam there. That's good. Like, again, we can use all the promotion that we can get, absolutely, so I won't say no to free promotion, and I don't think it really cost TNA anything. But for people who are like, it's too big for TNA or whatever else it is, well, why didn't WWE jump on it and say, let's take it quick, go before somebody else gets it? Because half of at least half of the participants are in TNA, Unless you're going to do a 3-man or 3-team thing again, and you're going to figure out a way for AEW to send over Edge and Christian. I don't know. Like, I think that's actually something that AEW and TNA should do. You know, in some ways, like, or whatever. Or maybe we're just waiting for them to have their contracts expire. I don't know. But anyway, guys, hope you've enjoyed this one. Hope you'll join me again in another one.